My name's Tom Spears, and I'm the science writer here at the Ottawa Citizen. Back on June 23rd of this year, a lot of us, like me, were sitting in little gray cubicles when all of a sudden the ground shook, the building shook, they started to make loud noises. I ran outside like a lot of people and stood around on the lawn for a while and eventually went back into work. It was 1:41 in the afternoon. Now, I started writing an earthquake story that day like a lot of reporters were doing. But a funny thing happened. I couldn't get any information, and neither could others working on the story. Normally, we cover a lot of little earthquake stories. Mostly there's just little rumbles, and that's fine. You phone the earthquake office right here in Ottawa, and a seismologist will tell you what happened. This time that wasn't happening. Their phone lines were down, and their website was off. We had to go to the U.S. Geological Service to get information about our own earthquake. I figured there was probably some kind of computer breakdown, but when I asked the people who worked there, I wasn't getting much in the way of answers. So a day or two later, I filed an access to information request asking for emails in and out of that small department and the media relations unit at Natural Resources Canada. I paid $5. I wasn't really expecting much. 4.5 months passed, and one day a courier came to my house and dropped off a big box. It was full of these papers. They're printed on two sides. It's about 2,500 pages. That's about 3 times War and Peace. This was the emails in and out of a little department of about 10 people over a 24-hour period, and it was stunning, stunning stuff. The emails show that for hours that afternoon, the media relations staff were forbidden to talk to the media. No one was allowed to answer any questions about the earthquake. Bureaucratic bosses were saying, in effect, don't tell anyone there's been an earthquake. They weren't allowed to talk until somebody in an office nailed down the precise magnitude of the earthquake, and that came hours after the fact. This was a serious problem because people all over town were scared. They were wondering, how are my kids doing at school? Is it safe to go back into my office building? Is there going to be another earthquake? If I drive home, will the bridge give way underneath me? And they weren't getting any answers. The story gets better or possibly worse depending on how you see it. After a couple of hours, the media relations unit said, well, we've got a good idea. Let's have a conference call. We've got more than 100 reporters all calling in looking for information. We can have one big conference call, put on some earthquake experts, and answer everybody's questions at once. It was a great idea, but just one problem. They had to get approval. Approval had to come from multiple levels, all up and down the bureaucratic ladder, and that took hours more. Finally, they did get it. They put out the approved press release saying, call us, we'll have a conference call. The release went out 24 minutes after the conference call began, and about 2 minutes before the conference call ended. Funny thing, almost nobody was on the conference call. Now, it's easy to laugh off all this, silly old bureaucratic rules, and we all have heard those before. But what if there's a real problem someday? What if there's a tornado? What if there's a big fire that destroys buildings? What if there's a terrorist incident? What if there's another earthquake that's bigger than this one, or a flu pandemic that's worse than the one we had last year? Is the government going to respond by telling people things or not? I think we've just had a preview of how our federal government will react.